Whoa, did you just see it? I did. Welcome to the Close the Deal show. I'm your host, Terrence McCray. Every week we bring you business information, tips, insights from entrepreneurs, business professionals, and inspired individuals from San Francisco in the Bay Area and beyond. The Close the Deal show also features public announcements, Entrepreneur Week, and small business owners, as well as nonprofit organizations. And if you're looking for strategies to help you in business, educate the public, then you're in the right place. Thanks for joining us today. Today we have a reoccurring guest who has been on this show, but you know him as Mr. Bill Wealth. Welcome, Jasper Smith.
Hey, what's up, Terrence?
All right,
Good
now.
to see you, brother. Thanks for having me back on again.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure in having you not only back on the show, but to learn some new tips, because, for the last, several weeks, I've been going through some financial troubles myself. But ideally, for you all who don't know Mr. Bill Wealth, Jasper Smith, I'm allowing him to share with you all not only his background, but most importantly, the organization that he represents, something that can be informative, something that can be influential in your life. And I'm talking about the Urban Financial Service Coalition. So please, Mr. Smith, could you share with us what this organization represents?
Yeah, for sure, Terrence. So the Urban Financial Services Coalition is a 100% volunteer-based organization from our local chapter here in San Francisco to the national chapters as well. So it's exciting because all the people who are involved with this organization, again, if you didn't hear it, 100% volunteers. So we do this because we care about our communities. And if we look at financial services in terms of how the industry is represented, it's been primarily a dominant white male dominated. So if you look at people of color, even women, they are not heavily present in the industry. And so part of what one part of that organization is trying to make sure that we're building that network of minorities financial services professionals, because it gets tough out there when you're the only person in that office by yourself who looks like you, right? And so I think part of that, what we do is try to bring people together. And so I've been blessed to have been introduced to this organization about 6 years ago when I had recently moved to the Bay Area. And so they had hosted their annual economic summit, which is an event we still do every year here locally. And so it was being hosted at the Federal Reserve Bank right downtown. And so I had the pleasure of meeting the president, Walter Brown, at the time of the local chapter. And he really just had a conversation. We went out to grab coffee. And he just kind of asked some very pertinent questions about where I wanted to go in my career and how could he be of service. Now, the funny thing about that conversation is that I find myself doing the same thing for people in the industry. So whether they are younger than myself, even older, I think a lot of times we always feel like we're going at this stuff alone, and we don't have to do that.
So when you met Mr. Walter Brown, what was it that you were looking to find out from him?
Great question. So I needed some guidance and mentorship. And so I've worked at some very large, prominent financial firms, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to land a mentor of any sort. And so I always kind of felt like I was on this island. As talented as I was, I've taken a lot of tests to be able to sell various financial products, but I still just didn't know enough about the business itself. And so I was searching. I was searching hard, and I wasn't finding that at the firms where I was working. And so when I had that conversation with Walter, he said, well, I got some people you probably want to meet. And lo and behold, they were all African-American financial advisors, insurance agents, there were attorneys. I mean, people who looked just like me who were out here killing the game. And I got excited. Been involved ever since. And we, again, are 100% volunteer based. And so when I meet a person, I don't care if, no matter where you are in financial services, I need to know you. And so if you don't have an organization that's providing the mentorship, even offering up leadership opportunities, a lot of times we're in these companies, but we may hit that ceiling at some point, so where we may not be able to get into a management role. And so you never get a real chance to show people that you know how to lead. So this organization allowed me to develop a lot of those skills that I wasn't able to hone and work on in my actual job.
So when you say volunteer, what for the viewers at home could learn from this organization and providing some of their time to find out more about what it is you offer. So what do you specifically volunteer?
So quite a different angle. So there's one whole effort geared towards the youth in terms of like a youth empowerment arm where we've gone into elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, even colleges to do financial literacy training, financial literacy workshops. And so we have found ourselves getting a better response when I think people see that we care about the kids, knowing that there's still adults who also need those same messages. So we've hit it from the youth standpoint, but even adults. And so we've had some various connections with people from various corporations, and so they have like employee resource groups, and so those are great opportunities where we've come in and have done kind of some broad-based financial wellness training or workshops, or we've had some very targeted efforts. You know, one being the mortgage crisis that hit a lot of people across this country. We had a mortgage crisis task force. And so we were going around to different churches or different community groups, and we were doing panel discussions on coaching people through the process of whether they needed to keep their home, whether they needed to try to negotiate with their lender, because a lot of people unfortunately lost their homes during the last housing crisis, and we're still seeing some of the remnants of that huge debacle. And so we were doing a lot of community efforts and just trying to educate people about what they could do to potentially keep their home, or if they had to make that tough decision to give up their home and think about, you know, what's the next step in their process. So we try to do as much as we can, but keep in mind, because we are volunteers, I think we're always going to be looking for more people, Terrence. And one of the challenges that I usually pose to people is if you can volunteer 3 hours a month with us, you've done a lot. That's my challenge to anybody who's looking for an organization where, you know, you want to make an immediate impact and it's not going to take up too much of your time. But if you could dedicate 3 hours out of the month, we'll find something for you to do.
But one of the things that I find challenging is people don't like opening up and sharing their personal financial business. So how do you actually get people to really open up, whereas there are so many people, especially in the African American community right now, that are spending lots and lots and lots of money. Some are spending their savings, some are getting money off their homes as far as mortgaging their homes based on putting their kids through college.
So that's a tough one to kind of tackle. So I'll phrase it this way. We all have a lot of competing priorities. And I think a lot of times we get so caught up in running the rat race, whether that's going to your job, running your business, what have you, dealing with the family life. And so we never really sit down and look at it from this 5,000-foot view. And so I think we were just talking about before we walked in out front about how people don't have a plan. Now your plan could be a 100-page document with a lot of graphs and charts and projections, or your plan could be something I just write down on this scrap sheet of paper. But the plan that you create, it has to be unique to you, Terrence. And that's the big disconnect when it comes to financial planning. And I'll say planning because that's where I think the focus needs to be. However, people sometimes just don't want to commit to doing the plan. So I think we're all interested in achieving financial peace of mind or financial independence, whatever it is you want to do, but there's got to be something in place to help you to achieve that goal. And that's what people are not doing. They're not taking the time to do the plan, and they're wondering why they can't move forward, or they're still stressed out a lot about their finances.
Well, give me an example for someone who has an income of $100,000 and they living in a household of two, single parent, okay? How would you help this woman that's a single parent, has 2 kids in a household, bringing in $100,000? What would be her plan for a 5-year future?
Okay, so if single, house, 2 kids, so we have a lot of necessities. So one, it depends on how old the children are. So I know college planning may or may not be on the list of this individual. There is, I think when you have children, and whether you're a single parent or even if you have kids in general, I think life insurance has to be a part of the conversation, because if your significant other isn't here, how does that income get replaced? So insurance is a really big deal that, again, a lot of people don't talk about insurance in a positive light because we don't like to talk about death. Death and taxes are guaranteed, Terrence. They're going to happen. But we don't want to plan for it. And a lot of times we tend on being very reactive. So if I am that parent and 2 children, I want to make sure I have enough life insurance, because if that parent is no longer here, who's taking care of those kids? Who's paying the mortgage on that house? Do the kids want to go to college? The kids got to eat. They need clothes. I mean, you think about all these basic necessities. We've got to make sure to get that income replaced somehow, some way. But then there's also retirement. There's also retirement. So if she's a younger professional or he's a younger professional, then you have, again, your retirement is coming at some point as well. So the idea is we have all these things that we're trying to get done. And when we tend to see the problem as this big, we tend to freak out. And so what I try to do when I'm speaking to people, whether it's at a workshop or if it's a one-on-one session with a client, it's let's break it down. So first we got to figure out kind of where we are right now. I know you think it's bad, but let's do an assessment. So let's take inventory. And so I want people to really sit down and make a list of everything that you own, whether that's bank accounts, retirement accounts, list all your credit cards, your mortgages, your student loans. So now once we've taken inventory, now we know, okay, what we've got at this present time. So once we've done inventory, now we got to figure out what's the most important goal. And we have to maybe do what's our top 3. I may have 10 things on my list, but I need to figure out what are my top 3 things that I can actually probably make some progress on, but also that are near and dear to my heart that I really need to get done. And once we've assessed the goals, then we're going to do a little deeper dive. And I think if people start out by doing the inventory, setting some goals, I think that gets you excited about the process, because now I'm changing the way you've thought about your situation. Because until you sit down and start really seeing what you have, you really never have that secure type of feeling and comfort that you know what you're doing. I mean, a lot of people who make a lot of money, but can't tell me, how much they save every month, how much they invest every month. And so I want to kind of break it down to a granular level, so that way you don't think of it as this big issue or project that's stressing you out. You think of, hey, I got one little thing I need to work on. Or maybe I got 2 things to work on, or maybe 3. And that's how you get people to start to get comfortable. But I'll be honest, man, if they're not ready to do it, nothing I can say, do, present, show means nothing. Because Terrence, if you're not ready, there's nothing I can do.
What do you do to motivate them, though?
I scare them. I'm not, the media does enough of that. I mean, if you read statistics about, the lack, we're underinsured, people don't have enough of an emergency fund. So, that rainy day is going to happen. Hope you have some money saved up. If not, you usually have to go borrow the money on your credit card, or if you had a retirement account, a lot of people borrow from their credit account, retirement accounts. You mentioned it earlier. A lot of people will, take out a second mortgage on their house. People do a lot of things because they didn't have the emergency fund. All I can do is really tell stories. I try to, no matter what group or setting we're in, trying to make it as relatable as I can to the audience. So telling them, hey, I got a friend who does this. Does anybody in the room have a friend who fits this description? Or maybe that friend is actually the individual who's in the seat. But we all know somebody that's got a financial issue.
So how many people are members of the Urban Financial Services Coalition?
So nationally, I don't know that number off the top of my mind. I know locally here in the Bay Area, we have, I think it's about 18 or maybe, about 18 dues paying members. We have a lot of friends of the organization who may have volunteered at some point, who may have been an active member, who may not be active now. But I know we have about 18 dues paying members. We're actually in our fall push. We have a kind of a retreat coming up middle of next month. And so it's kind of a half day, all type of, it's a jam session where we're going to be planning out our 2019. I think as of late, we actually were just doing an event last night with the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce. So the Making Money Moves Part 2 event was just happening last night. So there was myself, I was presenting. There was Jason Matthews, who's our current chapter president of the San Francisco Bay Area chapter. And then another phenomenal woman, Nicole Middleton. So she's actually a certified financial planner. Dynamite sessions last night. We had probably, I think, about a good 30 people who attended. I would love to see that number double or triple. But again, I know financial topics and workshops aren't the most exciting for people to want to come to. But I think the people who attended last night got a lot of value out of that session.
Is that a stigma that the African American community has? Is it taboo for us to not want to really have these open discussions?
I don't think it's just for African Americans. It's for everybody.
Oh, okay.
It's not just for us. I think
Okay.
that's another myth. I think a lot of people, all different colors, creeds, ethnic backgrounds, they aren't comfortable talking about money. I mean, I like to ask the question when I'm in front of an audience: how many of you have a serious financial conversation with your significant other, with your family, and with your close circle of friends? Most people don't have that conversation a lot. But if I ask you, hey, who won the Raider game or the Niner game? I mean, people rattle off stats. They know exactly what happened. I mean, there's a little more comfort in stuff that's fun, and we still don't think planning for our financial future is fun. I think it's fun having money in my pocket. I think it's fun when anybody has money in their pocket and they're not stressed out. My goal, I think the coalition's goal, is just we're trying to get you a little bit more comfortable. Maybe today isn't the day, but there are so many resources out there that people just aren't tapping into, and the UFSC is just one of those resources. And we're gonna keep doing these community efforts. We're gonna keep trying to partner with other organizations. And so anybody who's watching the show, if you want to reach out to us, I mean, you can check us out. I mean, we're out here.
Call in. My apologies. Call in at 415-861-6648 right now before Mr. Jasper Smith not only continues on, but before he departs, if you have a question.
For sure. So they can check us out. Our chapter website is ufscnet-sf.org. So again, that's ufscnet-sf.org. That's our chapter website. They can check us out. We are never not looking for volunteers because, again, people come and go, and we want to make sure we have a nice, robust group of talented people who care about trying to do something for their community.
So my next question, Mr. Smith, is mainly right now, the economy looks good in America.
Yeah.
It looks real good, right? With, say, for instance, a lot of issues going on with the NFL and financial matters regarding who's going to watch, who's going to participate. If you came into some money, what would you advise someone to invest in right now, the way the economy is, so that they can plan out from 5 years from now, them seeing something that they can, a nest egg they could relax with?
That's a loaded question. So there's never that one silver bullet to answer those type of questions.
Okay.
Because I think when you start talking investments, you open up a whole can of worms, Terrence.
Okay.
So I'll answer the question to the best of my ability. But before I even want to talk investments with anybody, you gave me a piece of it. So I know the time horizon. You said like 5 years or something to try to build a nest egg. So that has me thinking, okay, the person is thinking a little bit more long term. But I also need to know their risk tolerance. So that is huge.
What do you mean by risk tolerance?
Yep. So the example I always give is, let's say you had an account with $20,000 and let's say you checked your account tomorrow and you saw $10,000 online. Do you A, freak out and take your money out of that account? Do you sit and do nothing? Or do you add more money? I want to know how people think when they see account balances drop.
Okay.
Because investing sometimes it's kind of counterintuitive, but when things are going down and getting bad is the greatest time to invest. So people know about buy low, sell high, but we don't put that theory into practice. And so from an investment standpoint, I need to know my time horizon, my risk tolerance, and the what could be a number of things, Terrence. That could be stocks, that could be bonds, that could be ETFs, that could be you investing in real estate, that investing in a business. So it's tough to really tell somebody exactly where to put their money without me doing a little bit more research and figuring out, those other questions or those other items that I just kind of posed. I gotta know a little bit more information before we can give a recommendation. And any good advisor should ask you a whole lot of questions before they invest your money. And if they don't, they're probably just trying to sell you.
So is that the case with a lot of advisors?
It depends.
Okay.
Because depending on what type of advisor they are, I mean, there are transactions that need to happen. Like you need something, I have it, let's get it done.
Okay, in 30 seconds, what's the best tip that you can give someone right now planning their financial plan?
The best tip I can give is have a conversation either with yourself or your significant other, take inventory, jot down some goals. And once you've jotted down your goals, then figure out what course of action you're going to take. Maybe you have 1, 2, or 3 things that you decide to do in the next week, month, or 6 months, and you got to execute.
Excellent, excellent. There you have it. You have not only the tip, but you have the insight and understanding on how to invest your money, but most importantly, and how to understand the way you plan with your money. Jasper Smith is a recurring guest, and I want to thank you for not only coming on the show, but for continuing to come on the show and sharing with people insight dealing with their finances.
Yes, you are very
It's
welcome.
always a pleasure having you.
And thank you so much for bringing me back, Terrence.
Absolutely. And you will be seeing more of him. Before we close this deal, we would like to hear from you. If you have any suggestions, questions, or even want to apply to be a guest on the show, visit us at www.theclosethedealshow. San Francisco Bay Area viewers, you can find us every Monday night at 8:30 p.m. on cable Comcast, SF Commons Channel 29, or online. Worldwide, the Close the Deal Show YouTube. Please subscribe, like, and comment on your favorite episode. Take good care, everyone, and don't forget, find the right connection and close the deal.